And here we are. It's heavyweight MMA. Bert and Toby here to discuss, amongst other things, the Marvin Vettori versus Israel Adesanya fight that's upcoming. Now, I was just thinking, like a few people commenting recently on some of our posts are all welcome to comment, be it negative, be it positive, whatever. That's fine. But I was also thinking, there's a few self-professed experts out there in fight analysis. So anyone that really has strong feelings, send us a message and we'll hook up and have a second talk on this Adesanya Vettori fight, because I don't mind. It'd be cool. It's going to be cool to have someone chat with us. So anyone that's interested, put it in the comments. We can have our own Zoom meeting and we'll post it. All right. Anyway, moving on to the fight. This is the second fight that they're having. What are you thinking at this time, young Bert?
I'm thinking the ratings are going to be low.
The ratings? You think the ratings will be low? I think it's going to be big.
Yeah. Really? Why?
Because of the tension between them. I know it's a second fight, but I think that because Marvin Vettori, even as Charles Sonnen said, he should be nicknamed Angry Marvin Vettori, because he's a pretty angry guy lately. He's voicing his opinions everywhere and he's getting some airtime. I think that's kind of strategic. And I think this fight, because they know he's angry about the loss to Israel Adesanya, actually thinks he won and he thinks he can take the win. And Adesanya doesn't like him. I think it's going to get heated in the social media side of things, and it's going to get very interesting, and people will want to watch as it gets closer.
I mean, yeah, I suppose that's always a possibility, but as of right now, I don't, as far as just technique, skill-wise goes, I don't see how he's going to win that fight. And then, I was listening to him talk a little bit about how he won that fight before. And so I went and rewatched it thinking, okay, maybe I didn't know what I was looking at. And I'm trying to think of where he thought he won that fight. And I just see him missing punches over and over. He had like a 20% accuracy on his significant strikes. I checked afterwards, and even lower on overall strikes. And where? How?
I was watching this Adesanya clip. He's got a new channel on YouTube, and I was looking at it today, and he had a picture of Vettori on the single leg, and he's saying this is how he thinks he won, with the single leg. And he said that this is how his friend or him said this is how he sleeps at night, like holding on to something, like he's holding on to that single leg.
It has to be, because in the third round, he did finally get a takedown, and Adesanya got back up. He got another takedown, he didn't really break completely free. And then he kind of re-got that same takedown, and he sat on top of him for a while. But so give him the third round. But what in the first two rounds, I cannot fathom what he's thinking for those first two rounds.
Yeah. But in saying that, I also had a rewatch of it the other day, and it was a game of inches, don't you think? Because although Adesanya definitely outskilled him with the stand-up, everything was very close. Did you see like how many times Adesanya just backed out away from those head kicks? With the biggest thing I noticed, like mad head kicks coming up, and Adesanya's just straight out of the way, and the punches too just out of the way. So I know he got beaten soundly, but the thing is, it is a game of inches, and if Adesanya's off his game, it can fuck him up.
No. Okay, next time we're at the gym, I haven't made it in recently, but next time we're at the gym and you just dominate me, I'm gonna be like, dude, that was a game of inches. Every time I swing, I just barely miss. It's like, yeah, exactly. That's the point of the game. Like he was missing by more than a couple inches, though. A lot of those things Adesanya is doing clear. You can see that he sees it coming, and he gets clearly out of the way, and as it passes, he then lands his counters. It was like a game of feet that he was a foot ahead and 2 seconds ahead the whole time.
Well, he does have 6 inches of reach and 4 inches of height advantage. So he's a game of inches. But anyway,
well, I'm just glad now I can claim that you only beat me at just a game of inches. Right. I just need that little change, and I'm gonna take you out.
Yeah. Looking back at the two, I'm just looking at their stats before, and you can see like both have a similar amount of fights. The last few fights have been Blachowicz, Costa, Adesanya. Vettori's fought Hermansson, Holland. Hermansson was a good win because Hermansson seemed to be gearing up to be the next challenge to Adesanya. So that was a good win. But like you said, it was a short notice fight. both similar age, a little bit of reach and height advantage, which in normal fighting, it maybe won't be that much of a difference. But in that one, you can really see the difference. It is that little bit of reach advantage that beat Vettori, I would say. And when you're watching Vettori too, he likes to snap back and counter over the top of people punching, and that doesn't work so well when someone has a longer reach advantage. So he can't really snap out of the way of a punch and then come back, because he won't actually be able to like time it correctly to hit him. He's not long enough to do that. And that's one of his things he likes to do, as is Adesanya. But as with Adesanya, he doesn't do as well with people that are big or as big as him, or bigger or longer reach. I think Vettori is going to struggle again because of that reach disadvantage, when his stand-up game a little bit likes that little bit extra reach on people. Like he ducks out of the way and comes back over the top, and it won't really work with Adesanya. Firstly, because of the reach, and secondly, because of the reflexes.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong, but when I'm watching Vettori, it seems like he's fighting 10 years ago. And he has this style where it's like, well, if you just move forward and throw punches, you're going to like land. There's like this punch and bunches idea that was going around. And he doesn't run straight in, and he just 1, 2, 1, 2, running straight in. And he did it on Adesanya like 20 times, the same exact combination. So if he's fighting Hughes, he might knock out Matt Hughes, but that's probably why he only has 2 knockouts on his record. So am I missing something? Does he have some evolutionary stand-up that I'm not getting?
So we can figure out that I think Bert is a big Vettori fan straight up. Yeah. Actually, I don't know, like in some cases there has to be a bit of a trade-off, right? So this guy is kind of an all-round guy that seems to be okay at everything, but not particularly good at anything. He's got that all-round skill set, which I guess is what you mean by he's kind of that old standard, right? Where people weren't really specialists. They were just starting to, in the middle phase, people were all just learning everything, and there were not as many standouts. Now it seems the game seems to have picked up a level, and you've got your specialists that know how to do everything, but they're best in one area. So Adesanya is a awesome striker, and you've got your awesome grapplers like Khabib, Meyer, etc. And then Vettori doesn't fall into any of those categories, right? He's just got a good grounding and everything, but he's a little bit elementary in especially the stand-up.
Well, I mean, he can dominate Holland in wrestling, but Holland has 0 wrestling ability. And Vettori was exhausted even doing that against Holland, and Holland has shown time and time again he just doesn't have any ground game or defense for takedowns, really. And when he tried to do those takedowns against Adesanya, they got stuffed for 2 rounds, and Adesanya, to be honest, he wasn't doing that great of a defense on his takedowns. It was a bit lackluster, but Vettori just didn't seem to have he didn't have the right technique and the movement or the angle to finish the takedowns on him until the 3rd round. Then he was able to get some once he finally drove through shots and then took advantage of the cage a little bit with and then turning the corner. But it seems like he doesn't have the ability on the feet to do much of anything, and I'm not sure that he has the ground ability to take advantage of it.
So Bert's pretty much saying bet the house on Adesanya, but the odds are going to be in that favor anyway. Obviously, when 2 people fight and then fight again a couple of years later, they're not expecting too much change. They're expecting it to go the same way. I must admit, watching Vettori, I watched a couple of those last fights. I would say he's like, he just seems a beat behind someone like Adesanya. His rhythm and speed doesn't seem to be like he's going to have that explosive punching to be able to really land something. He looks like he's stuck in the mud a little bit, as McGregor would say. He just looks a bit just slightly slow and very elementary, straightforward line attacks, throwing sort of arm punches. Like he's not really like using his full body movement and everything. I also can't really see him landing anything amazing, but he knocks people down. He hurts people. He hurt Hermanson with a good punch, dropped him. So he's probably got a chance, especially I would say in those first couple of rounds. And then after that, I think he fades. His power fades a little bit, and he should be a bit more of a sitting duck.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd probably agree.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't really agree that he has a chance in the first couple of rounds. I think he's going to just get dominated more then, but I don't know. We'll see if we'll see what he's changed. We'll see what he's
Yeah.
changed. Like, I don't see him making up much of any ground as far as striking goes, to be honest. I think he just probably should abandon that 100%, turn into an
Yeah.
NCAA champion wrestler if he's going to try to beat Adesanya.
That's what I'd say he should do. And the good thing about it is, I reckon these guys, as they get closer, it's going to just heighten. There's going to be a lot of emotion, and that can lend itself to Adesanya's game a bit. But I can't wait to see angry Marvin Vettori in the ring, like wanting to attack, loss and everything. I think it's going to be very exciting to watch. Kind of feel pumped to watch this one more than some of the other rematches.
Well, I imagine
You're
as it
not
gets
at all.
closer, I'll get more. I'm at the moment, no, I'm not very pumped. I mean, that's what I was telling you yesterday. I'd rather have him fight Uriah Hall or something. So at least I can get excited about a striking battle there. I just think Adesanya's going to dominate most of this. And if Vettori happens to win, I think it's going to end up being probably the most boring fight we've seen in the last 10 years.
Well, actually, what you just mentioned about fighting Adesanya, fighting a different person, be great to see. I'd love to have seen Vettori versus Costa. I think that would have been an awesome matchup. Two strong guys facing off. It would have been an interesting fight. A lot of aggression, head-to-head battle. Very interesting. Don't think that'd get much out of the first round, probably.
I would be much more excited about Vettori Costa because I just think it's a lot better matchup. But I do think Costa wins that fight 9 out of 10 times as well.
Yeah,
maybe I'm crazy.
So going back to some of the skills, we already know Adesanya. Everyone's talking about him. We already know he's a specialist at stand up. So many kickboxing wins, boxing fights. That's not something that I think Vettori can catch up. However, he does have that advantage of grappling. He's trains with that. I don't know if he still trains, but he did train with Mark Munoz before, decent wrestler. And he has Rafael Cordero as his striking coach before as well. So these things can help him, along with his brown belt in BJJ, which is a little bit higher accolade than Adesanya has. He's a recent purple belt, I believe. So yeah, he's got a little bit more probably ground game. So like you said, that's the way he should go. He should just forget about punching, maybe throw some hands at him or do the little Gracie foot stomps and run in and just try and tackle him to the ground.
Yeah, if I was him, I honestly wouldn't play the stand up at all. I would put my hands up to block any shots coming in. I would try to rush him against the cage, and if he is improved, taking down Adesanya with his movement, the way he circles stuff, is going to be difficult to corner him on the cage early. But I mean, if he can do it, why not waste your energy with footwork rather than swinging and missing and probably getting tagged every time you do it anyway? So I'd throw very minimal punches and just try to use the cage, get him down, and then see what you can work from there.
Yeah, cool. So there we have it. So we've got the key for Vettori to win from Bert the wrestler, and I would say for Adesanya, obviously, is not to engage in too much grappling. It's to maintain his sniping from a distance. I'm guessing Vettori is going to be like a raging bull, and Adesanya will be the matador, sniping him as he moves in, landing a lot of shots, getting that cumulative damage, and slowly just belting him up until he gets later into the fight and Vettori slows down, maybe getting a finish.
Yeah, we should keep track of how many times I say that someone's key to victory is just taking them down for wrestling. Avoid fighting, turning it into a wrestling match. Don't punch anyone.
Just speaking of wrestling, I think we should just quickly touch on how well your wrestler friend went with Jake Paul, because this kind of shows the punching skills of the wrestler, having watched Askren land one punch before being punched into the next.
You know what I heard today? I heard today that, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about how Askren only showed up for a week of training.
Yeah.
With Freddie Roach.
Yeah.
I heard today that he actually only showed up one time, and they did camera footage, and then he stood him up and never came back.
Yeah.
He just didn't show up for the other stuff.
That's outrage.
That's pretty sketchy. I don't know how accurate that is, but I heard that from someone who heard that from someone that was in their gym.
Yeah. And Jake Paul,
I don't know.
Jake Paul's
Who knows?
now
Who knows?
challenging.
But that's pretty sketchy. And if he didn't take it seriously, then yeah.
True. Jake Paul now, I read as before, is challenging a couple of UFC fighters. He's challenging Diaz, and then he's saying naturally he should be fighting McGregor after that. So let's just hope he nails one of those fights and Dana lets one of them off to actually fight him, because I'd like to see that. I'd like to see Diaz, your friend, fight him.
You know what I was thinking today? First of all, Diaz is not my friend. What I was thinking today is, what's unfortunate is we're going to keep getting these boxing matches, and you're going to keep drawing MMA guys into boxing matches. And I have always had this complaint with boxing. The same thing that I had with, like, when McGregor fought Floyd. And I thought, well, boxing takes a different set of skills, and those skills are very defined, but they're not as dynamic as far as like the versatile, like all the different things you need to bring in. And so my opinion is, it doesn't take, calm down, don't attack me yet. My opinion is, it doesn't take as much skill to last in boxing as it does in other sports. Because, like, for example, if you have let's say the best wrestler in the world, or like Floyd is supposed to be one of the best boxers of all time. Yeah. And you take an amateur who's never done it, never had a wrestling match, or never had a professional let's say college wrestling match, because it's not broken up the same way that boxing is. Let's just say someone that's never wrestled in college, and they go and they train for 4 months. They will get destroyed so badly. They won't get a single point. They will get tech faulted, embarrassed, or pinned immediately. But you've got McGregor, who was able to get in there and last 10 rounds before the ref ends up stopping it. And he actually landed some decent shots here and there. And I think he took some of the earlier rounds. And then you have people, I just don't think it requires, it limits the amount of skills you're able to use. And so you're going to take these guys with high level skill in this other art and bring them in. And then even if Jake loses, but he looks decent, he lands a couple punches, it always makes him look better. It's just annoying to me. It's just annoying because I don't know. When I think of myself in there, I would just know that I'm going to get knocked out. Like, I know I couldn't do it because I'm not, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying, man?
I think on one hand, like you said, you probably haven't had that experience with a high level striker to really go on. I think it's exactly the same as what you said. If you get someone who's like world class, or even country class, like, you know, like an Australian champion fight someone that's never fought before, they won't even be able to touch them, man. They won't get a touch. They won't even be able to touch their body or their head. And it's probably the same in the wrestling. But the difference in McGregor fighting, it's a tricky one, because I think they're probably slightly different weight divisions, whatever. But McGregor's trained boxing his whole life since he was a kid as well. So it's not really saying that he hasn't done it before. So it's not really the same comparison. It's like saying someone that's wrestled their whole life, but maybe they didn't achieve the super high level, fighting someone that's a world champion. They still might be able to clinch up and do a little bit right, defend a couple of seconds or whatever.
Well, I can throw myself into that because I've wrestled almost my entire life. But if I went against the best wrestler in the world, he's going to dominate me to the point where he can do whatever he wants to me. But I've still wrestled for 20 years plus. So maybe the time frame difference, and maybe it depends on the type of boxing is a bit different anyway. It's a different sport, obviously. So it's not, maybe won't be look as dominant, but it may be as dominant, you know, like they may not take any damage, etc. I felt like one thing, I felt like McGregor was a little bit of a bigger sort of fighter than Mayweather was. Like, I think if he was exactly the same sort of weight, it would have been a bit more of a whitewash. Yeah, I guess it's a little annoying to me when people say that, well, he only lasted that long because McGregor or Floyd played with him and wanted to wear him out. And it's like, well, if you're really that good and you're that superior to somebody, you wouldn't need to wear them out. You know, it's like me, if I had a competition against a fourth grader, I don't need to wear him out. You know, I'm just going to manhandle him because I know I'm that much better, and I'm going to prove that I am the professional. I'm not going to let you go until almost the entire fight and land shots on me and make me look bad. So I've completely diverged from your original question of Askren, but yeah.
Anyway, I think it's a difficult one to talk about, but One thing about boxing though, it's like you've taken, like if you take MMA and you take out those little things, just like you'd say the wrestling, it, like you said, with Askren competing with, was it Jordan Burroughs? Like the difference between them was so huge because you've got one guy that specializes in one thing and Askren's kind of spread off into other things and maybe not on the top of his game or never was at that level. But the same with the boxing, they take those few skill sets that MMA also has and they really refine it. So they do, not all of them, but a lot of them are doing those moves and that head movement and the punches like so accurately that they've really, really refined it. So it's actually a very, very tough sport too, because it's lots of head-based punching, body punching, long rounds. They train like lots of head punches and everything. It's a very, the guys that do high level boxing are very, very tough individuals as well. They've got nothing to go to. They can't go in for a clinch as much as you can in MMA. They're going to get, there's no room to hide really from someone trying to punch you as much as there is in MMA where you can clinch or take someone to the ground and these things. I think it's a very tough sport. I respect both, but both are very tough. But yeah, the top level boxers, man, very, very tough. A lot of intestinal fortitude,
I agree with what you're saying, but like the point that you made about Askren, I forgot that Askren and Burroughs wrestled not long. What was that? I think that was like last year, or the year before that. Askren, as far as in the UFC goes, is one of the top wrestlers. He won several championships by just simply wrestling, dominating everybody. He was a great wrestler in college. Is one of the most famous wrestlers to go through college, and he got absolutely dominated to the point he didn't even score a single point. He got completely embarrassed against Burroughs. So I guess where my disconnect is when we see guys going in to the boxing world, who these guys, whether they're the best in the world or not, or they're just simply training specifically boxing, there should be a clear gap. And especially with someone like Floyd, I guess this goes back to the McGregor thing, because that's the measure that I have. There should be such a gap that it should be embarrassing to the person that enters the ring, the same way that any wrestler, anyone that comes in and tries to wrestle Burroughs is going to get embarrassed if they're not doing it full time all the time.
Yeah.
So seeing that there's not that disconnect, and seeing that somebody that doesn't do it full time all the time and is a mixed martial artist and never was a professional boxer can last for 10 rounds, that makes me think, well, there's something off about this sport. Like they're
he actually got knocked out? He didn't last for 10 rounds?
McGregor?
Yes.
Well, he didn't really get knocked out, though.
Clearly you didn't pay attention to the fight, but
the ref separated it, and it wasn't actually a knockout. Did you watch the fight?
TKO, bro. He didn't last 10 rounds. Maybe you can go back and watch it and see the disconnect between the two.
Wasn't it the 10th round?
I don't remember.
10th round, the ref stopped it.
I don't remember what round it was, man.
While he's standing up against I thought he was doing fine, a lot less punishment than fighters in the UFC take, and the ref stopped it. I was like, okay, I don't watch boxing a ton, obviously, but fighters in the UFC take way more punishment than that before it gets stopped. I found it a little bit odd.
Yeah, depends. Each ref has their own opinion, man, on it. But yeah, no, I think there was a disconnect between them, but I think it's a difficult one to really just base your information on that one fight. Someone that's been training a long time, I think there was a disconnect, and I think Mayweather was kind of doing what he wanted to do. He just didn't choose to finish it. Like you said, he could, if he's so good, he should finish it early. But I don't know, he just played his game plan, which never really was to try and finish people in the first round or anything. Played his game.
Convenient.
Anyway, we're done, I think, Bert. And obviously, you think that we should bet our houses on Marvin Vettori, and I'm thinking Adesanya. But man, there's been some messed up results lately, so it's hard to really say without a doubt that Adesanya is going to win. The MMA maths doesn't seem to be working lately, with Rose doing head kicks and people breaking their legs and hurting their nerves and getting their calves kicked. So I don't know what to think anymore. Actually, looking at Vettori looked pretty open for that calf kick and leg kicks. Looking at some of his fights recently too, so that could be something that Adesanya could look at. Interesting.
Yeah,
he always
I think he could But if Vettori was trying to do that hard wrestling thing, I think he could, because I don't think he has much to fear as far as the punching when he's opening up with those leg kicks. I think just light him up on his legs early, and Vettori's, then that his one shot of driving through those shots and whatnot, he could kill that early.
Yeah. Great thinking, young Bert.
Mm-hmm.
Up here for thinking. That's it. All right. Thanks for your time, Bert. That's the end.